Hello, this is Mike Madden and you're listening to the Arts Show podcast. Here you will find interviews with artists, musicians, authors and anyone else in and around the arts. Some of the interviews are recorded direct from the Arts Show on Expat Radio, with one or two specials in between. This episode features Derry author Claire Allan talking about her new book, Apple of My Eye. It was recorded live on Expat Radio on Monday the 4th of February. Due to licensing restrictions, we are not allowed to play the songs included in the original broadcast.
Earth calling, we've landed.
Well, I've moved out of that hotel in Leeds. I'm back home in Whaley Bridge, where the Wi-Fi is about as reliable as, well, who knows.
Well, it's better than the caravan you were in.
But there's more chance of getting interrupted by the cat, the kids, and anybody else who's running about. So, good evening, everybody. This is Mike Madden on the Arts Show on Expat Radio, and tonight I am absolutely thrilled to be able to bring to you Claire Allan. Good evening, Claire.
Good evening, Mike. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am the very best. I'm sitting here and there's a sleeping puppy beside me. It's screaming up professional author. So if she lets a bark, it's not me, it's the dog. Just warn you.
And you may have detected from Claire's accent that she's from across the pond in Northern Ireland, a place that you absolutely love. That's right, isn't it, Claire?
I do. I'm a very, very proud Derry / Londonderry woman, and very much so, even more so in the last year or so, when such a positive spotlight has been shown on Derry with the success of the big TV programme Derry Girls. So yes, always, I've lived here all my life. I can't imagine living anywhere else.
Now, we're here to talk about your latest book. So it was actually launched last week, Apple of My Eye.
Yes.
So just tell the listeners a little bit about it without giving too many spoilers away.
Without giving too much away. Well, it's a psychological thriller, and basically centres around the character of Eliana Hughes, who is a palliative care nurse. She's 7.5 months pregnant, and suddenly she gets this mysterious note in her pigeonhole in work, which sort of alludes to the fact her husband may or may not be doing the dirty on her and having an affair. And very quickly she doesn't know who to trust anymore. But we soon see there's also somebody else that's watching from a distance, somebody that is absolutely desperate to become a mother and will do anything that she can to get a baby all of her own.
It's so is this more of a domestic noir or really a true psychological thriller?
There is an element of domestic noir to it, but yeah, the psychological thriller aspect is there. There's a lot, without giving away too much, there's a lot of manipulation and lies and you know, some really quite horrible crime going on and nastiness to get to the behind everything that is going on. I'm told it's very, very twisty and turny, so it's quite difficult to talk about without giving away too much, but yeah, I mean, it is set within a family relationship. Her mother is involved in the storyline as well, and obviously her husband, but it will give you the chills.
I think I might be able to get this one on audiobook, so I'll listen to it on the next long journey I have.
Enjoy.
So it was launched last Thursday.
Yes.
What's it been like since then? Was the big champagne parties, or was it quite low key?
Well, I was actually in Dublin last week for the launch, so it was very lovely actually. I was chauffeur driven around Dublin to meet with various booksellers and to do a little bit of media down there, and then had a lovely dinner with people from the media and booksellers, and it's always a lovely day. Publication day, it's a day to celebrate. It is also a wee bit scary, because, it's like sending your child off to school for the first day and hoping that nobody's going to steal their sandwiches and their dinner money and trip them up in the playground. But spending it with people in the industry makes it nicer and and it's a very surreal thing to launch a book.
So this isn't your first launch with Avon. You released Her Name Was Rose in 2018.
Yes.
So are you kind of getting used to the way Avon work now? And have you got more work with them further down the line?
Well, yes, I can reveal that the next book, which is called Forget Me Not, will be coming in May of this year. So, and there'll be another book to follow it. Yeah, I'm getting used to the way they work. They're absolutely incredible to work with. The entire team, from my editor to the people who deal with the sales and the marketing and the digital side of things. They just really, really know what they're doing. But what's most impressive about working with a publisher such as Avon is that they are so genuinely passionate about what they're doing, and that comes across in every single communication that you get with them, that everybody in that team loves what they're doing and wants your book to succeed.
And now, Avon aren't your first publisher, because you've actually been an author since 2006, when you crafted a career in women's fiction with Popek Press.
Yeah.
Have you noticed a significant difference between them and Avon?
A massive difference. Popek Press publish solely in Ireland, and even when I started writing for them, digital books weren't really a big thing. So it was a very, very different model. They're a much smaller operation, though they have a very strong track record. They've published the likes of, Marion Keyes and Kathy Kelly and Patricia Scanlon and all these great big Irish female writers. But it's a very different operation. I think Ireland generally works a bit differently to the UK. There is definitely that kind of, oh, sure, it'll be grand. We'll all just batter on and get it done. A very relaxed attitude to it. You're hitting a machine like HarperCollins and Avon, and it just all steps up a gear. I'm working harder than I've ever worked before, but I know that there is a team working just as hard on my behalf.
Right. Well, that is good to know that you can rely on your whole team. Now, you switched from women's fiction to crime and domestic noir.
Yeah.
Was there a conscious decision to do that, or you just had enough of women's fiction?
Well, I did want to go a little bit darker. I never intended to go anywhere near writing a crime novel, to be honest. It was a bit of a happy accident. I had written the 8 women's fiction novels, and I was, to be honest, I was starting to feel a little bit restless in that genre, as if I just hadn't quite found something that I could be really, really passionate about within it after 8 books. So I wanted to write something a little bit more serious. And I wrote like 30,000 words of a new book, and I sent it to an editor, and she says, come and meet me in London. So I thought, great, I've got a book deal, it's going to be brilliant. But she actually said, actually, no. She said, I can see what you're trying to do. And it was brilliant, so generous of her to meet with me. She says, I can see what you're trying to do, but if you want to go darker, just go dark. Just release your dark side, your evil side. I didn't realise I had an evil side really back then, but she sort of gave me permission to write something that was twisted and to examine things that I never had in fiction, and I actually found that I absolutely loved it. I love delving into people's motives and how even the most nicest ordinary person can be driven to some terrible deeds in the correct circumstances.
So, obviously you've made a great success of this, and you're originally an Irish bestseller for your women's fiction, but since then you've gone to UK, Canada, Australia, and even USA Today bestseller. So when you appear in these lists, how do you generally find out about them?
Normally it is publishers contact me. I think on one occasion another author, it was to do with Australia, contacted me and said, by the way, do you know that you're number 1 on the Kobo sales today and you're here in iBooks? And I was like, no, I did not know that. It made my day very, very happy. But normally my editor, Phoebe Morgan, would be the first person to contact me to say, look, it's done this. I get a sales update every week on how the book is doing. And it's the most surreal, brilliant feeling in the world that people in different countries are reading my book in large numbers and actually enjoying it and actually understanding all the Derryisms and the Northern Irishness of it and enjoying it. with that and enjoying reading about my hometown.
Well, I mean, USA Today is quite an achievement because we've had a few Sunday Times bestsellers, but USA Today, I think you're the first we've had on. Has that meant anything different? Have you seen a marked increase in sales in the US?
I haven't got my most recent sales figures through yet, but we have hit the top 100 in Kindle sales in the US, which is apparently no mean feat and a great achievement. I got a message about 9 o'clock on a Friday night to tell me that, so I knew that had to be a big one. And the book was sold in Target in the US. So when you hear of like big chain stores like that getting behind your book and selling it, that gives you that sense that this is something so far beyond the scale that I'm used to. I know now already that Her Name Was Rose, which was the first book, has outsold all my 8 other books in total.
That's quite something, isn't it, for one book?
Yeah.
And it was only published last year, so yeah, that is quite something.
It is very, it's brilliant. That was 10 years. Those 8 books were 10 years of work, and in one 6-month period, we have exceeded that. So I couldn't ask for more, really.
And so your publisher are obviously covering you in love, and we're going to go to a song now. U2 and Ordinary Love.
We're back live with you, pal.
Good evening, everybody. This is Mike Madden on the Arts Show on Expat Radio. And tonight we're talking to Claire Allan, who has just launched Apple of My Eye. Good evening again, Claire.
Good evening.
Now, we talked before the break about you being an author since 2006, but your early career was actually in journalism. Just talk a little bit about that and how you transitioned to being a full-time author.
Yeah, well, I was working as a journalist from 1999, and for the first 10 years of my writing career, I combined journalism with writing. But it was in 2004, 2005, I had started to think about writing a book, and at the time, my deputy editor in journalism, a lady called Siobhan McElhaney, she kept saying to me, Claire, you've got to write a book, you've got to write a book. And she always pushed me, all the uncomfortable stories that nobody wanted to do, she sent me out to do and pushed me and encouraged me. And she took very ill in 2005, and unfortunately, quite quickly we learned that she wasn't going to survive her illness. It was a brain tumour, and a very aggressive one. And it was around that October time, we sort of got the call, if you want to come and say your goodbyes, please do so. So we went to visit her in hospital, and we chatted and we laughed and we joked about people in the office the way we normally did. And, it came the time to leave, and obviously we're sort of conscious that this may be it. The last thing Siobhan said to me as I left her hospital room was, you better write something good for me, girl. So that was quite a challenge to be put to me, and it just so happened I was turning 30 a few months later, so I thought, right, okay, I'm going to write that book and I'm going to finish it before I turn 30. And I finished it with about 2 weeks grace, and that became my first published novel, Rainy Days and Tuesdays. And as I said, for the first 10 years I combined both journalism and writing, and sometimes the journalism fed into the books. One of my books is based on a true story that I covered in my journalism days. But in 2016, when I was turning 40, these big years are big things for me. The opportunity came to take voluntary redundancy from journalism, and the industry's changed quite dramatically. And my life, I suppose, has changed quite dramatically. So I decided to take the chance and see if I could progress the writing career on. So with, a little bit of security behind me, I decided to go and write full time. And Her Name Was Rose was the result of that, as is Apple of My Eye. And it's all going well. And I hope Siobhan is up there going, right, she did it.
And that's quite a remarkable story. And did you get any like the usual path into publication is several rejections before you find an agent, and then several more rejections before you find a publisher. So was it that difficult for you as well?
I see, this is where I sound terribly, terribly like smug or something. The first agent I queried took me on.
Wow.
And then she sent the book out on a general submission. But within 3 months for sending the book out, I had a 4-book deal with Popek Press. So I was very lucky. I landed on my feet, got the 8 books published. Funny, it was when I then decided to change genre and was kind of playing around with different things. That's when the rejections started to come in. And it was like, I've written 8 books. How on earth can I be getting rejections now? But I realized
yes.
I was writing a new genre. I had to relearn really everything. So I sort of took myself back to school and studied an awful lot about the craft of writing and plotting and structure, and just looked at it as if I was writing my debut all over again.
And did you have a support network around you? Did you go to any writing groups or reading circles or anything like that?
Don't, but I have an amazing online support network. Funny, when I first started writing in 2006, there was an online writers community called Write Words, and there was a little sort of critique group in it, and we would have posted maybe 1,000 words of our current work in progress, and the other people in the group would read it and come back with feedback. There were about 12 of us maybe in that group. And I'm still really good friends with a lot of those ladies who were in the group at the time. So there were people like Callie Taylor, who is an Avon author. You'll be well aware of C.L. Taylor. Finola Carney, who's published by HarperCollins, and Steve Harris, who's published by Simon & Schuster. We had all these people now have built up and had these great careers, but we all remain a brilliant support network to each other, and we're frequently sort of bouncing ideas off each other. I couldn't do it without them,
It's fantastic to have that support. So you went from being a full-time writer in journalism to becoming a full-time writer as an author. So there must have been different disciplines in terms of a lot more flexibility on word count, but you've still got the deadlines to work to. Yeah,
and I think being used to deadlines is something that really goes in my favour in terms of working now to this schedule as a full-time author, because you just know that in journalism your deadline is, it's there, it's a line in the sand. You cannot miss it no matter what, because the paper doesn't go out and people don't get paid and things go horribly wrong. So that's how I approach writing now. I meet my deadlines and I work towards them. And I suppose I'm used to, in journalism, things can change last minute. You can think you have your paper finished and then a big story can break with 20 minutes to spare to print. So you're used to chopping and changing and writing very quickly and adapting very quickly and editing. So these are all great skills to bring to being an author. Also being a journalist, I have seen a lot of things and heard a lot of things and interviewed a lot of people over the years. I've been at crime scenes. I've sat through prolonged trials, and so this is all research. This body of research from 17 years in journalism is just sort of floating about in my head. So it's a very nice resource to have.
It must be an invaluable resource, 17 years of that. So that's fantastic. So coming back towards the current day, and I believe your book, all 3 formats, the Kindle, the paperback and the audiobook, were released on the same day.
Yeah.
And Avon sometimes do a digital first, but with you, they've put them all out together. So do you get involved in the audiobook at all?
They do send me like little audition clips of the actresses that they're going to use as narrators. And with Apple of My Eye, because there are 3 different voices in the book, they sent me, 3 different actresses reading for the parts. And that's very, very surreal, actually, to hear somebody else speaking your words. And I did actually cry when I heard, particularly the actress who is voicing Ellie, because she's just brilliant. She just brings her to life, and it's incredible to listen to. But thankfully, they don't make me read the full book out loud because I think it's 11 hours long or something. And I would stumble. The dog would bark. Something would go horribly wrong. So I just leave it to the professionals.
And I think it is a very challenging profession to be able to be a voice actor for an audiobook. Because like I say, it's 11 and a half hours long. So there must be days and days and days of takes together, right?
Exactly. I don't know how they do it, but they do, and they just bring it to life. And there's so much enthusiasm, and they bring a different level to the characters that I couldn't possibly bring just sitting writing it. So it just sort of brings the book to a whole new level, and I just love it. It's brilliant to hear.
Do you actually read your own work aloud when you're writing it just to make sure it sounds right, or do you have any other techniques that sort of just give you the sense that that's absolutely the right words?
One of the most helpful things I find, if there's prolonged periods of dialogue, then I will read that out to hear if it sounds like actual conversation and not, correct grammar and everything. Sometimes doesn't come across as realistic conversation. But I also find sending the files to my Kindle to read is the way of spotting the mistakes. I think it's just the change of the screen or something. But if there's a mistake, it will jump out at you out of a Kindle. So that's one that I find to be a bit of a shocker, actually, when you think, that's great, that doesn't need much work. And then you read it on Kindle and you go, oh, my God. I can do another round of edit.
I do think the Kindle's a wonderful invention. I didn't think I'd ever move away from books, but Kindle and audiobooks are certainly the future. We're almost running out of time now. It's been a fascinating conversation. So for those listeners out there who may not be fully aware of who and where you are, just tell them a little bit about where they can find out about yourself, your books, and Derry.
And Derry. Well, mostly you can find me on Twitter because I'm a Twitter addict. So it's at Claire Allan, and it's ClaireAllan. And the AN always gets people. They always look for a different Claire Allan. So my website is claireallan.com, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram as Claire Allan Author. And if you follow any of my social media, you will find out loads and loads and loads about Derry too, because I never stop talking about it.
It's been absolutely fabulous having you on, and obviously you let slip that you've got another book coming out in May, so perhaps you'll come back and tell us all about that one nearer the time.
Indeed, I will. It's been lovely to chat to you. Thank you very much.
And we would love you to stay all night, but we've got to play out with the cause and stay. You've been listening to the Arts Show podcast with Mike Madden. Come back soon for more artists, authors, musicians and anyone else connected with the arts. We're going to play out with Mike Sanchez and I Don't Stand a Chance.
Baby, you hiding something that you don't want me to know, because I'm getting a vibe from way down the side, like you're just about ready to go. And you can't tell me where you stayed last night. You just can't cope with treating me right. I'm on the road to heartbreak. Now's the time to tell me so, because I'm getting a chill like I'm gonna be ill. I know you don't want me no more. I won't be satisfied with your little white lies. Girl, I've only just begun to realize I don't stand a chance. I don't stand a chance. You don't wanna know and I can't make you dance. Well, I said goodbye. Find yourself another guy. I wish you were mine, but I'm losing my mind. I don't stand a chance. Now's the time to tell me so, because I'm getting a chill like I'm gonna be ill. I know you don't want me no more. I won't be satisfied with your little white lies. Girl, I've only just begun to realize I don't stand a chance. No, I wish you were mine, but I'm losing my mind. I don't stand a chance. I don't stand a chance.